It's time for another edition of Lewis at Large with Warner Lewis. 60 minutes of smart talk radio with interesting guests from all walks of life begins right now. So sit back and enjoy. And now, from the flight deck, here's your host, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome everybody to another segment of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis, from the flight deck. And of course, that means some smart talk radio is in your future. In this segment, this is a subject we have not spoken about. We have spoken about it many times indirectly, but directly, no. And the subject is gold, that sparkly substance that many of us admire up close and sometimes from afar. Our special guest today, writer Matthew Hart, a brand new work called Gold, The Race for the World's Most Seductive Metal. Who's Matthew Hart? He's a veteran writer and journalist. He's written many books, including the award-winning Diamond. Work has appeared in the Atlantic Monthly, the Financial Post magazine. He's a regular on 60 Minutes, CNN, National Geographic Channel, and most importantly, he lives in the Big Apple. Matthew, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thanks, Warner. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. I'm curious as to what is it about gold, and I think I know the answer, but share from your perspective, why are we obsessed with this metal?
You know, that's really that's kind of the basement question, isn't it? And it's the one that people who deal in gold have been scratching their heads about for a very long time. Really, all you can say, the short answer is, we love gold because we've always loved it. It seems to be somehow hardwired into the human brain. Now, if you look back, in 1972, and only as recently as 1972, did we discover how very old this love affair with gold was. Because in 1972, a backhoe operator in the town of Varna on the Black Sea, digging a foundation for a building, accidentally unearthed a Neolithic tomb. They opened it up, and inside was this treasure of gold jewelry. They radiocarbon dated it, 6,000 years old. So for 6,000 years ago, our pre-literate ancestors, at the dawn of human civilization, treasured gold and were making jewelry out of it. And all we can do is kind of surmise what attracted them. It was shiny, and it was easy to shape into beautiful objects. The big change came in 625 BC, when gold money was invented, and then gold became more like what we know it today.
Wow. I'm curious, there's been a lot of written about gold, there's been movies made about it, there's been all kinds of research done on it. Anything ever threatened throughout the years to take its rightly place among the tops of our objects of desire?
Nothing replaces gold. Gold is at the kind of, it's at the heart of our financial system because it became money. When they invented gold money in 625 BC in Asia Minor, the nature of gold was fundamentally changed. Instead of being a kind of signifier of sacred or kingly royal power, in a twinkling, it became a necessity. It changed from a luxury to a necessity. It became something that wasn't just nice to have, you had to have it. And states had to have it as well as individuals because they needed it to pay their armies. The first business of a state is to survive and protect itself. So national defense, that's the main concern of any sovereignty. Gold was what everybody needed. Over the centuries that followed, there was a huge competition for gold. And let's scroll right ahead to the year 1400, 1500 in there. Europe is practically out of gold. Mints were closing down. There was a huge competition. The Spaniards sent a fleet sailing west across the ocean. We know what the cover story was. Columbus was supposed to be looking for new souls to harvest for Christianity. Well, you know, he mentions God 26 times in the diary of his voyage, and he mentions gold 116 times. So, I don't know. What was he looking for?
Yep. And
they sure found it.
You know, again, anytime, if you take Hollywood's take on it. You see miners roaring with their donkeys up to California, or you see Spaniards, or you see people in South Africa mining it, all with a franticness that sort of is unparalleled and unmatched anywhere else. In the research that you did for this, how much of that is stereotyping and how much of it was very real?
Well, of course, we do it a little differently now. The California gold rush, we think of that's the classic gold rush that everybody thinks of when they think of a gold rush. It was in 10 years in the California gold rush, they mined 850 tons of gold. Now, at the time, in the 19th century, that's a stupefying amount of gold. It was enough to found the Golden State. It founded California. It boosted the U.S. economy. It helped drive the United States expansion, not only westward, but the expansion of the East, because they were the big investors. Well, 850 tons of gold in 10 years? Hey, we mine 850 tons of gold today in 4 months. Now, I think that the gold is chased with every bit as much of a fever as it used to be. It's just that it's more corporate now instead of the guy on the donkey heading up into the hills and the sort of the treasure of the Sierra Madre kind of thing. We're just at the end now of the greatest gold rush in history. It was unlike any other gold rush because it was everywhere in the world. It was a price-driven rush. You think of a gold rush as somebody makes a discovery, and everybody says, hey, I want a piece of that, and they all head to the same place. The Klondike, California, big rushes in Australia, South Africa, the greatest of all. This one was on every continent except Antarctica. You could practically open your window if you were in this business, and you'd hear a drill going outside. They just ransacked the province for gold, ransacked the far provinces of various countries for gold, ransacked the planet. You think of the new big producers who've emerged. China, now the biggest gold producer in the world. The amount of gold available now and the amount of gold exploration and gold mining, just unmatched. And the technology for looking for gold is, of course, very advanced.
So what we really have here, and again, by the way, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large. Got a good one going here. We're talking to Matthew Hart. He is an author, writer, research, and he appears recently to be obsessed with things and possessions called gold and diamonds. The brand new work called Gold, the Race for the World's Most Seductive Metal. Matthew, interesting, the irony of this age-old, as long as the Earth's been around, substance, with all these different ways to get at it. And it is, in fact, a commodity. The price does sort of float up and down. I'm curious as to, when you were doing all this research, did you ever stop and think, my gosh, we put a lot of energy into this?
Oh, I certainly did. Yeah, I certainly did. And I try to describe in my book a couple of instances, sort of tell some stories that show how kind of mysterious and arcane and maybe even suspicious the business can be. I think of the way the gold price is set in London twice a day at a process called the London Fix. 10:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the afternoon, 5 banks, members of the London Fix, big bullion banks, which are just banks who happen to have a large gold business as well as their other business. They get together on the phone and they set the price of gold. How do they do that? They talk to their clients about how much they're willing to pay. And now that process, which is not transparent at all, is being examined now, not only by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission in the United States, but by the Financial Conduct Authority in the United Kingdom, because we're kind of a little suspicious about it. Some Australian researchers discovered that there was a huge spike in trading at the time that phone call was going on. So you wonder, who's doing that extra trading? Obviously somebody who thinks he knows what's going on with the phone call. For example, if somebody had access to that phone call, he would immediately know if there were more buyers and sellers. So if you know whether there's more buyers than sellers or sellers than buyers, you know which way the price is going to go. That information gives you a big jump on your competitors. In a business where seconds count, minutes can really make you a lot of money. And frankly, the regulators don't like it. Investors don't like it. You have to be an insider. The gold is it's a business for insiders. It's not a business for anybody to just take a flutter in my view.
You know, again, part of the lore when you think of gold and you think of its history is this, again, part of that sort of never-ending obsessive search for this precious metal. And one of the references that you have in the book talks about treasure hunters searching for a fabulous city called, is it Ophir? Ophir?
Yes, Ophir.
Ophir for thousands of years. And it's share with us a little bit of that story, because it seems to represent the classic sort of stereotype, almost a movie plot of people searching for a city or a mountain of gold somewhere, magically finding this treasure.
It is exactly like that search for the lost kingdom, the great search for the lost kingdom. And what happened was, in the Middle Ages, the greatest source of gold in the world was a desert kingdom called the Mali Empire, in Mali, in fact, and present-day Senegal. And the ruler at its greatest height was a man called Mansa Musa. You see pictures of him on European maps of the day, like the Catalan Atlas. And he's pictured there in the middle of Africa, Black King, sitting on a throne, holding a big nugget up. And the legend says, Master of the Gold. They could never find out where his kingdom was. The Portuguese went looking for him. At the time Columbus sailed west, the Portuguese were going south down Africa looking for a way to get into that. Well, scroll ahead to the 1980s. Mali is a client state of the Soviet Union, and an adventurer named Mark Nathanson, a Canadian actually, he was a grocer's son from Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. He was there on doing business as an importer-exporter, and he came across the legend of Mansa Musa and the old imperial mines, and he thought, you know, if they produced so much gold, where are the gold mines now? And he discovered that there was, in fact, a small kind of artisanal gold trade in the west of Mali. So he set out to search for where these mines might be, and he ransacked a few old libraries. In a library in Spain, he came across a map with a town marked as Ophir. Ophir is a name from the Bible. It describes a King Solomon city or the Queen of Sheba's city, one of those legendary, fabulous cities of the Bible, rich in pearls, gold, diamonds. So he thought, Ophir, so there's got to be a place there. Well, he went looking for it. He couldn't find a place called Ophir. And I'll tell you the story fairly quickly. He looked for years, going from town to town to town in western Mali. Finally, he discovered on a hill near the border of Senegal what looked like a little kind of dent, rubbish-filled cavity in a hill. It was a blocked-up entrance to a gold mine. He'd found the imperial mines. They formed a company, and the great Mali, the first of the great Mali gold mining companies. There was a fortune in gold. They made tens of millions of dollars in the first year.
Again, if you just joined us, Warner Lewis from the flight deck here of Lewis at Large, and we are talking about gold, specifically a brand new work by Matthew Hart called Gold, The Race for the World's Most Seductive Metal. Interesting title indeed. Matthew is a writer, and he is a researcher. He's appeared on CNN. He's written for the Financial Times, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we can't, but we need to ask this question, too, of you, Matthew. Then we'll get back to sort of some of the stories from the book. But the average listener is going, okay, I don't own any gold. I might have a gold wedding ring. I might have some other gold jewelry. But for the most part, you're talking about a substance that I'll never have much either use for, much knowledge of, or care. Why does our listener, why should we care about gold?
Well, for one thing, gold is a way to read what's going on in the rest of the financial world. You know, the gold price rose up so much in the last, it's just finished a huge bull run, and now it's leveled off and gone down a bit. But at the time of the financial crisis, in 2008. Let's go back to 2008, the collapse of Lehman Brothers Bank. A wave of panic spreads across the financial community. The price of gold, already rising, all of a sudden kicks off. It's as if they ignited afterburners under the gold price. From 2008, it's at about $800 an ounce. In less than 3 years, it goes up to $1,900 an ounce. Money poured into gold. What did that movement tell us? It doesn't matter whether you're somebody who has a gold investment or not. That is telling you something about the fear that is abroad in the land, that people with access to a lot of deep financial knowledge, what they think about, for instance, the value of the U.S. dollar. They don't like it. Money pours into. I'd rather be here, says the money, and that's what gold. Gold is always like there used to be a thing on the Barrick Gold website. Barrick is the biggest gold mining company in the world that listed some of the uses for gold. And one was a medical thermometer, supposed to be this super sensitive medical thermometer. But to me, gold isn't great because it can tell you the temperature of a person. It takes the temperature of the human race.
That is seriously profound.
Well,
Did you?
I've rarely been accused of that. I can tell you.
You've knocked us for a loop here. Okay, well, now we know why we care, and again, the extraordinary history, the extraordinary tie that gold has with world history cannot be argued. Well, let's talk about specifically some of the research that you did for the work gold involved you traveling to where the gold is. Share with us a little bit that story. Understand it was sort of a kind of an interesting journey that involved some highs and lows and maybe some scary moments too.
Well, I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, I got to travel to places like eastern Senegal where people are still mining gold, as they have been mining it in the bamboo forest for possibly 1,000 years. Now, of course, we're there with our modern gold mining technology too, and mining these old deposits as well. Again, they're the same deposits from medieval time. But I guess when you talk about scary, I guess the scariest place I descended into was the deepest mine in the world, the deepest man-made hole on earth, the Mponeng gold mine in South Africa. You get onto one mine elevator, they call it a cage, and that drops you down 1.5 miles. Then you walk along a tunnel and you get on the second one, and that drops you down another mile. Then from there, you're 2.5 miles underground now. And just to give you an example of how deep that is, that would be the distance of 10 Empire State Buildings. If anybody's ever ridden that elevator, it gives you an idea of what a long ride it is. Well, this elevator really goes fast, 46 feet a second. I mean, they drop you down a slot in the dirt, man, and you just shoot down there. The thing rattles, and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. There's an effect called the geothermal gradient that means the closer you get to the Earth's core, the hotter it gets. When you finally get into the lowest mining galleries at about 2.5 miles underground, the temperature of the rock is 140 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Not only that, these deep mines, like all the mines in South Africa, are crawling with thieves. They are invaded by bands of people who establish themselves far from the light of day, often for months at a time, and steal gold from the mine and get it up through compromising, usually by threats and bribes, the mine's security. And they're very serious criminals, a very serious organized crime. So if they threaten somebody, you better believe they make good on the threat. So they're down there too. So it's generally, let's just put it this way. When it's time to get back on into the mining cage and come up to the surface, that's okay. You don't feel bad about leaving it. You're just drenched in sweat. It's like walking around inside a pizza oven. That's what it feels like.
Okay. All right. So while it may have been uncomfortable, it must have been still loaded with anticipation.
Oh, it was. It was fascinating. It's absolutely thrilling to be in this, what is, after all, a very, very sophisticated engineering accomplishment. You know, it's like you're in a small city. You're in something about the size, that mine is about the size of the Upper West Side of Manhattan. That's how big it is. 300 miles of streets, tunnels, haulageways, drifts, galleries, and this huge air conditioning system and water and electricity, enough electricity to power a town of 400,000. Just a really impressive operation. And all of that is to mine a deep seam of gold 40 inches wide. So there's the value of gold right there.
Well, purely in the interest of time, I want to jump from Africa. I want to jump back to North America. Talk to us a little bit, if you can, about the lore, the mythology, and the truth about just Fort Knox, our own little gold mine.
Oh, well, of course, Fort Knox does have the largest gold reserve in the world, the largest gold hoard. The biggest gold stash on the planet, 8,000 tons, is sitting there in Fort. Well, actually, that's not quite true. There's a bigger gold stash at the New York Fed in Lower Manhattan, but it doesn't belong to the United States. Only some of it does. Most of it belongs to other countries and is held there by the New York Fed. However, the biggest gold stash belonging to one entity is the U.S. government's gold reserve at Fort Knox. The second you start writing about gold, you hear all these rumors. There's no gold at Fort Knox. They never look. They won't let anybody in. All I can say is they audit it all the time. The reports are available online. Go to the U.S. Treasury. If you think the government is lying, then, of course, you can't believe anything. But you'd have to believe that every auditor who works for the U.S. Treasury is compromised, and I don't swallow that. I think the gold is there. Have I seen it? No, but I believe it's there.
Well, Matthew, and okay, now let's do another hopscotch. Let's head to mainland China, the world's biggest producer of gold, but to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any large mines there or any particular reason they would be. Explain that if you would.
Well, there's no big mine in the whole of China. When you go to the Carlin Trend in north-central Nevada, you see the biggest gold mines in the world. You see these big million-ounce-a-year bruisers, big open-pit mines with underground extensions that just pour out the gold. That's the Carlin Trend in Nevada. Best gold field in the world today. Yet China doesn't have a single mine even close to that. What they have instead is tens of thousands of small mines, medium and small mines, tens of thousands of them, many of them illegal mines. I saw some. I saw them everywhere I went in China. The old gold fields in Shandong province, very, very beautiful part of China, lovely hills. In the east, near the Yellow Sea, very, very pretty country. And then up in more barren country, Inner Mongolia, which is a big resources sink for China. They have huge gold deposits, huge coal deposits, actually. That's the big thing up there. But also very important gold deposits, too. And on my way to visit one, I came across an illegal gold mine, a placer operation in a river, that was of industrial scale. And not only that, but up in the hills nearby, they were open-pit mining illegally. Open-pit mining. When you think of an illegal gold mine, you think of somebody stealing a bit of gold. Open-pit mining takes real earth-moving technology. You have to heap leach the product by dribbling cyanide through it. So since it's an illegal mine, they let the cyanide run right away into a stream. I mean, it's a circus, gold mining in China. Just a bandit circus.
Well, it is a fascinating subject, one that refuses and will never go away, is my prediction. I think that's safe. The subject is gold. The brand new work is called Gold, the Race for the World's Most Seductive Metal by Matthew Hart, well-known documentary writer, well-known author, well-known researcher. Matthew, my gosh, there's so much out there on gold, but specifically, how can they get a copy of the book and some other works that you've done, such as Diamond and Others?
Oh, well, they're available in bookstores. Simon & Schuster's my publisher for gold. And, it's available, or ebooks. You can get it at any number of places. It's widely available, and I'd be delighted if people buy it.
Well, we really appreciate your research. I know it was a labor of love. And all right, so what's your next one going to be? Plutonium?
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking of rare earths, but I'm kind of hooked on gold. I still have a little more writing to do about gold.
All right. Listen, you have a great day. And again, thank you so much for staying and spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having me, Warner. Really enjoyed it.
You bet. We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.